Okay, welcome to the next session. This session, we're going to set up your first campaign. Now, there's a number of different types of campaigns you can work on. There's a smaller tactical one, there's a larger strategic campaign, and then there's also outreach to first degree connections, all of which will be covered in other campaigns. This one, we're going to focus on the tactical smaller sized campaigns. So what that looks like usually is using a list less than 300 profiles or 300 or less, primarily because we have a limitation set by LinkedIn that only lets us upload 300 if we're doing it by URL versus using a search that you generate from within LinkedIn's sales nav or premium or recruiter setup. So yes, let's get into it. Initially, I pretty much always recommend using Booleans as much as you can. LinkedIn's search algorithm is pretty bad. You usually get at best about 60 to 70% hit rate. The other 30 you need to clean the data with and remove them from your searches. So Booleans are a great way to do that. This is my preferred Boolean search. Everybody has their own secret sauce. If you're not familiar with Booleans, there's lots out there. I'm sure most of you who are power users of LinkedIn and are looking to take it to the next level have done a lot of research on that. I will connect this spreadsheet at the bottom of this lesson so that you can download it for yourself. Basically, what I've done is I've just saved us. It'll save you a bunch of typing. It'll save you a bunch of headaches around setting up specific terms. So you can see here I've added one word to another word and then put it in speech marks and then added or afterwards. And then I can do that en masse. So basically I've got here, I'm targeting recruiters and I'm focusing on particular niches of recruitment here. So you can see I've done 5 recruiter, then I've done the same 5 words for headhunter, say 5 words for recruitment, then recruitment agency. And they're all in speech marks. When they're in speech marks, means that's an exact match search. So you only want something that exactly matches that in a search that comes up. And then also down here, I've added nots to it, which means anyone who has this, they are not included. So then what I do is I just take this like so. I go over to my sales navigator, paste it in like so, delete the knots. The extra knots are not important. And then we pop it in like so. Right, so essentially the way I recommend doing it is you want to get your keywords here. You can see I've got a long Boolean in there. And then what I'll do is I'll combine the long Boolean with a number of filters. So let's say, for example, I'm looking for a senior recruiter in the Vancouver area, and they've got to have a particular headcount. Now, whether that's for clients or candidates, it's often, pretty similar in the way that you do targeting. And here we go. We've got 81 results. Now let's say if I wanted to add all of these to a list, in Recruiter, it's slightly different if I recall. I think you add them to a list and then you've got to download the CSV, but with this, I add them to the list, and then I need to go and add all 4 tabs if I want everybody in this list. So let's say I do that, select all, and then save to list. There we go, etc., etc. So as I go through there, then what I do once I've got all 80, I copy this URL like so, and I go back into Kikioo, and I create new campaign like so. Let's call it tech test. I add a filter URL like so. There we go. Now let's say, for example, I'm working with a sourcer, or I have another way of getting a bunch of LinkedIn URLs too. The way that I would do that is I just go to profile links. So if you're using Recruiter and you want to import a targeted list that you have done a lot of research into, and you've done more sort of granular research profile level, and you're happy with every single profile on here, what you would do is you download the CSV from your Recruiter, and then you upload these URLs, the URLs from that list that you've downloaded, into here, like so. Or you can just upload the CSV entirely, but my preference is here because it just means that we import the data anyway. and it's less messy for upload CSV. It's less messy when we're uploading it into the database. Now, one other thing to note is for a tactical campaign where you're reaching out to second, third, etc. Connections, so not first degree connections. You always want to automate, well, you want to automate data cleansing for everything anyway, but this one here depends on what sort of campaign it is. And we usually differentiate first and non-first campaigns because the messaging is very different, because you know first degrees, you don't know second, third, fourth, etc. So then I just hit create campaign. Then I just hit create campaign and wait for it to populate. So we'll see you when I get back after we wait for it to populate, and yeah, I'll show you what happens next. All right, so we're back again, and we can see that the tech rep test has been uploaded successfully. We have 80 in there, so they're all people who are not first degree connections to me. So let's have a look within the campaign like so. All right, so there we are. Got all of them there. What we're looking to do in this step is to clean out the database. So you'll find with LinkedIn, the algorithm that it gives is at best 70 to 80% accurate, sometimes less. Even with a really good Boolean and a bunch of good filters in the way that I used the search there, you're not going to get a super clean list, which means once we've pulled in all of this fresh data into this database, you then want to go through and you want to delete or suppress any profiles that don't match your criteria. So let's have a look through this and say, I know that for a fact, I mean, we're in the middle of COVID. Anybody in the hospitality sector probably isn't going to be recruiting for the next little while. So what I want to do, you can do that one of two ways. First of all, what you want to do is you want to make sure that all entries are selected. It's okay when I've got 80, but say you've got, 1800, you're going to want to make sure all are selected. You select all of these like so. And what I do is I'll skip all profiles. Now, the reason that you want to skip all profiles is because you, instead of having everybody in your bucket and taking them out, you want to take everybody out of the bucket and only put into the bucket the ones that you want to be messaging. So that way you're assured that every single message, every single profile that's been connected with in your database are ones that you've approved. So whether that's being approved in using the method with keywords like I'm about to show you, or going through manually and re-including them, both of these are acceptable. So let's say, for example, we've got all these out and I want to make sure that certain people from certain industries are included. I can either select like so and go down and look at the different industries. You can see they're sorted, and you can sort by each of the tabs at the top here. Or let's say, for example, I want to make sure that I'm only talking to somebody who's senior decision maker. There we go. So I can, oh yes, before you re-include them, what you've got to do is you need to select all, and that way you then need to reselect them based after you do a keyword search. So I put in senior like so, select all of them, and I can either re-include them if I want to, or if I want to delete them from the database entirely, I just hit remove. But because I want to put these into my bucket, I'll hit re-include, and there we go. Okay, you delete that. Another hack, which kind of allows you to work a bit cleaner, is you don't need to see all of this data to ascertain whether the person's right for what you want. So I've removed first name, last name, and email. You could also probably remove website because that's not super relevant. And sometimes, usually I'd keep industry in there just to make sure, but sometimes industry is not relevant. So, all right, so we're looking at these guys here. Let's deselect everything. Now you can see some of them are black and some of them are yellow. So somebody who's black has been already re-included into the campaign. Anybody who's not is held out. Now let's say, for example, I want to go through and let's say I've done a bunch of others and I've got a few left over I want to check. So help desk manager, that's definitely somebody I don't want. I can either remove them or skip the profile. Now they're already skipped, but let's say I want to remove them. I just do that and it's deleted completely. Now here, the issue with this is the writing's yellow and the actual cell's yellow. Perhaps not the best. So you just got to hover over it to see what it says. Now, if you want to view a little bit more information about their profile, let's say, for example, these three you're fine with, you don't need a project coordinator, but a lead associate executive recruiter, you want to include them. So let's do that. We'll re-include those two. And let's say, for example, I'm not sure about this person or this person. Now, I'm not using any criteria specifically. I'm just showing you how the function works. Here, you're then able to go in their profile and suss them out a bit more, check out their experience, see whether they are the right fit for what you're doing or not. So that's great. And then we're good to go. Okay, so now we can go to schedule. Usually the time zones are pretty limited. I encourage our clients to use a much larger time zone. The main reason you want to work to about 12 to 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, the 12 to 14 hour period, because we're cloud-based, you're able to target anybody. Let's say I'm focusing on people East Coast USA. So that way I know that if I say it at 6 a.m., all of it only begins at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Doesn't happen before that. So I just go through like so, clicking. It's easier to click on a point rather than drag. It takes time. And for 7 days a week, why not? You get 200 extra connection requests over a weekend because the maximum we can send is 100 per day. So we always recommend switching on weekends, unless you're not working to close to 100 capacity and you want to just focus on the weekdays because it's a better result for you, which can sometimes be the case. But if you're doing client campaigns, particularly those extra 200, there could be valuable clients in there for you. So why the heck not? Okay, once we're in here like so, we'll have already created the templates in here. I can show you how to create templates in a bit, but first step is profile views. You want to switch on profile view, Twitter like, profile invites, and a sequence to start with, and then we'll go through and customize each one. The reason I don't do in-mails at the start of a campaign is because I usually try and hit them with an in-mail after everything else has happened. We find that in-mails are less effective than a direct invite and follow-up sequence. So we'd rather hit them with the invite and sequence first, and then after those messages have already gone out and the campaign's kind of finished, and we're thinking, okay, well, we still need to hire a candidate for this position. You'll first of all send them in-mails, and then what you can do is you can download a CSV and follow up on your ATS or your CRM or an email finder and an email sending tool. If you need help with finding one of those, just send me an email. I'm happy to advise. So yeah, then we go into profile views. You usually try and keep these all to the same number. As I described in an earlier video, you want to scale in regularly. Let's say you've got 2 campaigns running and you're running at 100 per day overall as across the whole campaign. I would usually recommend doing about half the number of Twitter sends as profile views, because usually a third to a half of profiles have Twitter attached, but a lot of them don't. And so you want to make sure that your Twitter likes aren't too far ahead of everything else in the campaign. Settings here, again, this is already set at 50, which is great. I don't usually delay an invite. So it's basically saying after you view the profile and you like their Twitter, are you going to delay sending the invite? I just send at the same time. And these, you can do them if you're really super into the minutiae, but again, I find it's not a big deal. And then you select your template. So, there's lots of different templates in here. For me, I just try and keep something light and fluffy. And one tip is mention a business name. I've been finding that business names, so one of my more recent ones here, how's things at company name? I came across your profile, etc. I find that when you use the first name and the company name, it has a better result than just a first name. And the reason for that is because people much less commonly automate using company names. So because we pull that into our database, it's a very easy addition to a message, and it increases the amount of response you get. Now, sequences is important. You can add up to 4 steps, and it really depends on what type of campaign you're running as to how many steps. I find for a candidate recruitment sequence, you don't want to do more than 3. Candidates don't love being harassed, and particularly a lot of my clients are in fairly niche industries. You know, what goes around comes around. They often connect with people who they later want to hire for different roles. So you want to keep everything pretty clean. So 2 to 3 messages. 3, I think, is usually optimal. The way that the strategy would usually work is you send a connection request. If you're a recruiter, you would say something more like, hey, I've got this perfect role. I think you'd be great for it. If you connect or if you accept this invite, then I'll send you a bit more information, and yeah, we can go from there. I can usually, when you sign up for a subscription, we are able to give you a whole lot of templates that our clients use that are really successful. And then once they accept your request, you'll add a sequence. So let's say, for example, I'm just going to use test messages to start with. So this was a test I used many years ago. I like to ask questions. If you're a recruiter and this is a candidate tactical kind of campaign, what you want to do for the first message is say, hey, thanks for connecting. Great to hear from you. What I'd love to do is send you a bit more information. Here it is. More about the job, pay scale, location, challenges, opportunities, benefits, all that kind of stuff. However you would usually use LinkedIn, but this is just doing it all in autopilot for you, so you don't have to worry about it. And then once that's done, you send a second message, probably like 3 to 5 days after that, just giving them a gentle nudge saying, hey, noticed you hadn't got back to me yet. This is pretty urgent. Would love to hear from you if you are interested. Just book a call in the link above. Would be great to hear from you. And then the last one is like, hey, I don't want to harass you. Again, send it like anywhere between 3 to, 7 days. Depends on how urgent the rec is. And just say, hey, like, just so you know, I don't want to harass you, but just wanted to give you one last nudge to see if you wanted to book a call. I think you'd be perfect for this role, and I'd really value 5 minutes of your time. If it's a sales call, you've got to be a little smarter about it. As you can see here, a lot of my messaging is focused on questions. I'm asking questions. I'm all about the questions. And for any sort of client acquisition campaign, there's 2 strategies that we find work really well. Number 1 for recruiters is what we call the ideal candidate campaign, where you put together a couple of messages addressing a really commonly hired role, and then suggesting a candidate which you may or may not have currently available to a large swathe of specific clients. So let's say, for example, you're targeting CTOs at software companies, and you're reaching out to them with somebody with a great Java specialty. They're going to respond if they have any sort of desire for a developer in that space. Or maybe they'll even hit you up saying, we don't need Java, but we need this specialty. Do you have anyone in your books like that? That's how most recruiters have conversations and generate business. And it's really easy to do. I've seen it work super effectively for a lot of my clients. You've just got to then find the candidate, fill the role. And then you just send a couple of nudges, et cetera, et cetera. And then the last one is, in the business, we call it a breakup, which is basically saying, hey, I don't want to contact you anymore, just to see if you're interested, and you can add humor or however you wish to do it. It's basically trying to nudge them off the fence one way or the other. Do you want to talk? Do you not? Either way is fine with me, but would be great to hear back from you. Okay, so once that's done, your schedule set, your profile's all sorted, and you're happy with who's in and who's out, then you can go and hit play here. So that play button means the campaign starts. One other thing to note within this section here, before you hit go, is you want to make sure that things are, let's say, for example, I want to move my tech rec test up to the top. like so, and I want to, I basically just put that at the top and save priority. And that means that the actions on this are taken before the actions on any other campaign. And it cascades down based on priority, based on that number there. So I don't want to actually do this. This is just a demo for you guys. One other thing to note is if you're not sure about how your campaign's actually working, is it running? You can filter total or today, and then you can just hover over it and you get different numbers. So let's say you're wondering if it's sent enough invites today. There we go. It's sent the invites. This has sent 100 invites. So the others didn't get it because that was my top preference. Yeah, and just global limits, run them in order. That should be about it. Any questions? You know where to find me.